The night I stopped believing my family's cruelty was just a joke, started with cake, laughter, and my face hitting the floor so hard the world tilted completely out of place. I remember frosting burning into my eyes, something warm trickling from my nose, and my sister, Rowan, laughing like it was the funniest moment of her life. No one stopped her. Everyone called it harmless. But something inside me cracked that night, and it never went back to normal. Before we dive into the rest of this story, I'm curious, where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Avery Dalton. For most of my life, I learned to stay quiet just to keep the peace in a house that never truly had any. My mother, Marlene, always said I was the strong one, the easy daughter who didn't need much attention. My father, Gerald, followed her lead without question. That role sounded like praise, but it really meant I was expected to accept less, feel less, and expect less, while Rowan took up all the space in every room she entered. Rowan was only a little younger than me, but she acted like the center of gravity. When she spoke, everyone listened. When she laughed, everyone joined in. And when she got upset, the entire house shifted just to calm her down. I learned early on that my feelings were nothing more than background noise compared to hers. Even the small things hurt, but I was trained to swallow them and smile so no one would accuse me of being difficult or dramatic. As we grew older, the pattern never changed. Rowan would push boundaries and call it humor. Things would go missing. Accidents would happen around her. And somehow, I was always the one who ended up bruised, embarrassed, or blamed. Whenever I tried to speak up, my mother would remind me that I was too sensitive and that siblings fight. So, I stopped speaking. I built a quiet life far away in Seattle, convincing myself that distance would protect me. But distance never stopped Rowan from finding ways back into my life. She had a talent for turning cruelty into entertainment. She would show up at family gatherings with a smile that made everyone trust her instantly, then leave a trail of chaos behind that somehow always circled back to me. I told myself it was just a coincidence, that I was imagining patterns that weren't real. It was easier to believe that than to accept something much darker. Then, on my 36th birthday, everything broke open. The party was small, just family and a few close faces. I remember holding a knife to cut the cake, feeling something almost peaceful for once. Then, Rowan moved behind me. The next second, I was on the floor, pain exploding through my head as cake and laughter filled the room. Someone muttered that it was just a joke. No one helped me up. That night, I drove home alone with my head pounding so hard I could barely see straight. I kept telling myself it was nothing serious, just an accident gone wrong. But my body disagreed. By morning, the pain had turned sharp and unbearable. Light felt like fire. Every movement made the room spin. When I finally touched the back of my head and felt dried blood, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The emergency room in Seattle was loud and bright, but the nurse noticed how unsteady I was and rushed me in. I answered questions I could barely focus on, trying to explain what happened without sounding ridiculous. Telling a nurse that my sister shoved my face into a cake felt childish, not medical. But my condition wasn't improving, and the medical staff's sudden attention told me this was being taken very seriously. A doctor named Hanley examined me carefully, checking my balance and reactions. He stayed calm, but his tone shifted when he ordered the scans. I lay perfectly still inside the machine, listening to the mechanical hum, feeling like my life was about to change even before I knew how. When he returned, he didn't soften the truth. He told me I had a fresh head injury, but he also found something else, something that didn't belong to that day alone. The scans revealed an older rib fracture that had already healed, likely from years ago. The memory hit me instantly. A staircase. Rowan behind me. My family telling me I had just slipped. I felt my breath lock in my chest as years of dismissed pain suddenly looked entirely different under the harsh hospital lights. And then, the doctor delivered the real shock. He was legally required to report this. Because this was not an accident. A detective arrived not long after. Her name was Carver. She spoke gently but directly, asking questions that made my past feel heavier with every answer. She wanted details about past injuries, patterns, and whether anyone had ever discouraged me from seeking medical help. As I spoke the words aloud, I realized how many times I had been physically hurt, only to be talked out of believing it even mattered. My voice shook, but I kept going. Before I could fully process everything, my mother rushed into the hospital room in a flurry of anger and disbelief, demanding that I stop talking. She insisted it was all a big misunderstanding, just family jokes. But hearing her repeat the exact same words I had heard my entire life made something inside me snap. For the first time, I didn't try to shrink. I looked at the detective and told her I wanted to continue. My voice surprised even me by staying steady. Detective Carver asked my parents to step out. When the door closed, the room felt lighter, like I could finally breathe without pressure crushing my chest. She explained that this pattern of injuries was incredibly serious and they needed to treat it as a crime, not a family conflict. I nodded slowly, trying to comprehend how my entire childhood had just been rewritten into evidence. Not long after, my Aunt Elise arrived at the hospital. She looked shaken, like she had been holding in a dark secret for years. Right there, she admitted she had seen things when I was younger, moments where Rowan intentionally hurt me, and it was quickly explained away. She described the incident on the stairs, confirming she believed Rowan had pushed me. She even mentioned hearing Rowan talk about me in a way that made everything sound calculated, rather than accidental. Aunt Elise confessed she had stayed silent all those years simply because she was afraid my mother would cut her off from the family. Her confession filled gaps I had spent a lifetime trying to ignore. The detective took notes, building a terrifying timeline. I sat there feeling like my memories were dissolving. Nothing felt stable anymore. When I was discharged, Aunt Elise offered to take me home and stay with me, and I gratefully agreed. In the days that followed, updates came quietly but steadily. Detective Carver confirmed they had reviewed security footage from my birthday party. The video showed Rowan looking around the room to check for witnesses before she struck. And the moment I fell, the footage caught a smile on her face before she faked her panic. Even worse, a search of her phone revealed notes describing past incidents and planning future situations where she could get me alone. It was no longer a question of sibling rivalry. It was premeditated. When Sunday arrived, I returned to my family home with Aunt Elise, while the detective waited nearby. Rowan was already there, acting as if nothing had happened. Then, the officers entered the house and announced her arrest. The room erupted into absolute chaos. My mother screamed that it was impossible. Rowan shifted from arrogant laughter to pure rage in a matter of seconds, pointing at me, accusing me, and tearing through years of hidden resentment as her carefully constructed mask finally collapsed. In the weeks that followed, the truth settled in slowly. Rowan faced legal consequences and severe restrictions. My mother finally began therapy, struggling to face the reality of what she had ignored for decades. The family home that once felt so heavy with secrets became quiet in a completely different way. As for me, I am focusing on healing and building a life that belongs entirely to me. What I learned through all of this is simple, but permanent: silence does not protect you. It only protects the people who hurt you.